Hey everybody, welcome to Week 8 material. In this video, we are going to be focusing in on character animations. Specifically, we are going to be taking a character controller from the Unity Asset Store, a really useful character controller from the Unity Asset Store, and we're going to import another character and apply the character controller that the Unity Asset Store gives us onto other characters. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Unity Asset Store immediately and just drag in the page that I want to show you right here. All right, so this is going to be the character controller that we're using. This is a third-person controller plus fly mode. I'm going to leave the link for this specific asset in Moodle because it's extremely useful. So far, we've been using Chevolo Guy as a basic third-person controller and that basic FPS controller that I also provided for you in week 3. This is going to be the third type of template controller that you can use, which is a character controller. Now, the main way this differs from Chevolo Guy and the first-person camera is that there are animations attached to this character. And, theoretically, you can take the character controller that this asset package provides and apply it to other characters that you make or that you find. So let's go ahead and just add this into my assets and just, all right, everything is imported in. Let's go ahead and close this. Third-person controller plus fly mode. Thank you for acquiring. Yes, wonderful. All right. Let's open it up. Let's crack it open and let's start seeing what we can do. So let's see. We have this folder, third person plus fly. I think the first thing I want to do, first of all, this package has a fantastic README, fantastic documentation associated with it. So if you were wondering how it works and didn't want to reverse engineer it for yourself, you can go ahead and just go through the well-documented notes and documentation for the third-person controller. I'm not going to. We're just going to, do the classic thing of reverse engineering our work, reverse engineering their work for our purposes. So let's go ahead and crack open scenes, and let's go to this third-person plus fly, because that should give us the basic demo scene. Very nice. Let's fly around real quick. Decent little area. There's our character, who is called Shadow. All right. Let's go over this. Let's see what this controller is all about, shall we? So selecting Shadow, we can see in our inspector we have a lot of stuff to go over. So first of all, you will recall from last week the animator component. This is where we can assign a controller, assign an avatar. This is where we assign animations to the character controller. Let's see. In regards to the animator, we can go ahead and open up its animation tree and start going over that. I don't see the animation tree here on our panel, but it's okay, because if you don't see it, then we can just go up to Window, we can go down to Animation, we can open up Animator, and that should give us the animator panel here. And having the shadow character selected, we can see our very first animation tree. I believe Unity calls this a blend tree, but it is an animation tree. So what is an animation tree? Essentially, it is a node-based workflow that allows for animations to jump from one to another, depending on the input that the player puts into the put into the scene. So, for example, we see this idle to locomotion. Before we start going over the specifics of this animator. Of this animation tree. Let's go ahead and actually just play the scene for a second. Let's see how this all actually works. Let's actually test it out and play it for a little bit. Okay, camera works fine. Let's use W to move. A and S to move left and right. I can use space to jump. Very nice. I believe this particular package, if you hold Shift, you can run. It's very nice. I believe... What? Yes, holding the right mouse button allows you to get this over-the-shoulder view. Middle mouse button... Right mouse button doesn't do anything, but that does that. Okay. The last thing I believe we can do is F for fly mode. Yes. And if we hold Shift, we can fly faster. Using our mouse to control movement. Very nice. It's a very, very, very good controller. If we press F again, then we should fall back to the ground. We press F again, we can keep flying, fall. Very nice. We can jump and fly. We can fall to the ground. Good. Okay. Excellent controller. Press escape, press the play button to get out. Let's go back to the animation tree. So we saw a whole series of animations. We saw a basic idle animation, we saw locomotion, we saw jumping, falling. The animation tree dictates how the animations jump to one another. So let's click the arrow between idle and locomotion to review any particular criteria that is required before you can move to before you go from idle to locomotion. And it seems here that our speed has to be greater than 0.1, and we can play around with this if we wanted to. I'm not going to, but we could play around with this if we wanted to change the criteria of what it takes to go from idle to locomotion. If we wanted to see what it took to go from locomotion to stopping and going back to idle, it's our speed falling less than 0.1. Let's see what the preview looks like. Yeah. And this preview, it's original preview. There we go. Let's see. From locomotion to jumping, it requires us to hit the jump button. So conditions jump. As long as that's true, then the jump animation will happen. The falling animation, I guess, is just when you there is no specific criteria. It's just as soon as you hit back, as soon as you're done with the jump, you just you immediately just start the fall animation. Interesting. From entry to idle, nothing there, and from idle to falling, we just have to not be grounded anymore. So as soon as the character is not touching the ground and isn't doing anything else, then they will fall. That's interesting. Very, very decent little animation tree. We are eventually going to make our own very small animation tree in a future video, but this is just a basic introduction with a more complicated, already set up controller of how animation trees work. Again, just a series of animations connected together via simple criteria. You meet the criteria, you move on to another animation, and that's all there is to it. So let's go back to the scene. Let's go ahead and select our shadow again. We're back into the inspector for the shadow character. Let's see. We can see this character has a rigid body. Very useful for gravity, so that the character can have some gravity. Anything else specific to it? It has mass, angular drag. Let's see. It has constraints. Freeze position on the X, Y, and Z. This means that rotations are frozen in regards to gravity, and they are rotations happen via scripting and programming, and not via the rigid body component. So that's why these are frozen. When we go ahead and import our own character in later, we can unfreeze these and see what happens. But for now, we'll just keep them frozen because, as we saw when we played the scene, it was working. So there's no reason to mess with it right now. Let's see. We have the rigid body for gravity. We have the capsule collider for collision, of course. No real surprises there. And now we also have these 4 scripts. So these are the 4 scripts that make the character go. We can see that in the player camera, the main camera of the scene was assigned to this player camera, to this public player camera field here. And aside from that, these are the 4 scripts that make the character go. Anything else that we should take a look at? I think, actually, if I can open up the shadow here, let's look at the camera real quick, because yes, there is a script for the camera, wherein the player character, Shadow, is assigned to the player field for this third-person orbit camera script. As we saw, everything was working really, really well, so with all of the important pieces played out, the camera script, all of the animator component, the rigid body component, the capsule collider component, and the 4 script components here, I think we can go ahead and safely try to reverse engineer this and apply all of this stuff to different characters. And ideally, those characters will then, move and operate exactly the same as Shadow does here. So all right, let's go ahead and get some other characters in here, shall we? Just like with the third-person character controller, Shadow, I'm going to provide a link to this package that I'm downloading as well, if you want to just test other models with the if you just want to test other models with the scripts and components that Shadow has, here's a free, easy one that you can use. If you have your own models that you made, or models from iClone or Character Creator, or other programs like that, feel free to use those as well. So I'm just going to add this in. Okay, those characters that I found in the asset store have been imported in. Let's actually make sure that that they work. Let's go to the prefabs here and see what we got. Which one do I want to work with? I think just this regular one. How big is he? Oh, good. Same size as Shadow. Good scaling. No issues with the textures. Perfect. This should be fine for us to work with. All right, excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new scene. So let's go ahead and open up our sample scene. Don't save. I'm going to save this scene as ported character scene. There we go. Okay. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. We're in imported character scene. I'm going to very quickly just create a plane. Make sure it's at 0.000. There we are. We can make it a bit bigger. Good. Next, we can go to our prefabs for the characters. I'm going to bring in this guy. Very quick, I'll add in a few more things. I'll cut to when I'm done adding things. Okay, the white box is set up, so let's go ahead and select our imported character. And let's start setting him up, just like the Shadow character, so that we can use him the same way we were using the Shadow character earlier for this and for any other scenes that we may want to. So first things first, we need an animator component. You can see this character already comes with an animator component, but there is no controller for this particular character, which means that if we play the scene, nothing is going to happen with this character. So let's go ahead and select the character controller, the only other controller that we have here. This is the one that Shadow was using, and we can confirm that really quick by just going back to the our scene here and selecting Shadow, and there it is, character controller for Shadow. Perfect. So let's go back to our assets, scenes, imported. Wonderful. All right. So next thing, actually, before moving on, we can double check and just make sure we have the same animation tree. We do. The same controls, the same connections here between idle, locomotion, jumping, falling. We can go to the second layer for flying, the third layer for strafing. I guess it's strafing. I didn't try to do any strafing for this character. How do you do a strafing, I wonder? Aiming, grounded. That's interesting. Whatever. We can look into the strafing later if we want to. Let's select the man character again, and let's keep adding the other components. So the next thing we need is a rigid body, I should say, physics body. We got to go into physics to find the rigid body. There we go. We need to make sure that the positions of X, Y, and Z were frozen, just like they were for Shadow. Next, I think everything else here is okay, but we can double check with Shadow later before we start playing. Let's go ahead and add in our capsule collider. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. Let's go ahead and go to our orthographic view. There we go. And we can just start setting up the positioning of this. For ourselves, the radius we can bring to right there. Let's go to the height. I think that should about cover it. I mean, technically it's a little too low, but for demo purposes, we can maybe play it a little bit higher. Let's push it up. You'll notice we're using a capsule collider and not a mesh collider. Yeah, that should be okay. All right, now let's go back to our perspective view. You notice we're using a capsule collider and not a mesh collider. We don't want the the mesh collider to slow things down because these are heavier duty heavy duty meshes. So having a mesh collider is going to have a lot more polys. Even though it is going to be a more accurate collider overall, it's better to just use a capsule collider in this case. Let's see. Let's go ahead and play the scene, make sure the capsule collider actually works. Yep, the character is not falling through the floor. You'll notice, by the way, if we didn't have this, let's go ahead and remove this temporarily. If we didn't have this collider, then the character would just fall straight through. And that's not good. But we do, so we're not going to. That's great. All right, next let's add the 4 scripts. So let's go into our third person. Let's go to our scripts. We got level scripts, and we also have player scripts, and these are the ones that we want. So let's go ahead and select the man character. We'll lock that in. All right, so we need basic behavior. We need the fly behavior. We need move behavior. And we need aim behavior. And we also need to make sure that the player camera, that we lock in our camera here, that we assign our camera to this player camera component. There we go. Next, we have to select the camera itself. So let's unlock the inspector for the man character. Let's go to our camera. We'll lock that in the inspector. We need the third-person orbit camera script. It's not here in these scripts. Maybe it's in level scripts. Yes, there it is. Third-person orbit camera basic. We can lock that in, and we can assign our man character, our player, to the player component there. Wonderful. So I think that's it. I think now it should actually work. So let's just play and see if it actually works. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Can I move? Yes, I can, and it works exactly like Shadow. Hooray! I can jump, I can fly, I can fall back to the ground, I can do the over-the-shoulder Arkham thing. I can strafe a little bit. Okay, that's cool. All right, so this works. Wonderful. Real quick, I want to show you what happens if you don't freeze the rotation constraints here. If you don't constrain the rotations here. Let's go ahead and just play the scene again without those frozen. We should get some weird things happening. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Look at that. The rigid body's acting up. That's not good. That's weird. Okay. So let's go ahead and lock these back in, and that should be exactly like Shadow. Last thing we can do, it's not necessary right now, but we can tag this game object, this asset as player, and that should be it. All right, so we did all this work on our man character. I am going to go ahead and I'm going to make him a prefab. Why not? Would I like to create a new original prefab or a variant? I think in this case, I am going to say variant. So now we have this man character with all the stuff here. Now we can bring this into any scene that we want. There's no sense in bringing in 100 of these man characters into this particular scene, but we can bring them into other scenes. So case in point, let's go back to that demo scene with Shadow. Third person scenes. All right. Let's get rid of Shadow because we don't need him. Let's bring in our character here, our own guy that we worked on applying all that Shadow stuff to. Let's actually play the scene and see what happens. I don't think it's actually going to work right now because yes, there's no camera here. So the Shadow prefab actually had the camera as a child of its character. So we have to bring in our own camera. There we go. We just go to game object, go to camera. That brings in a new camera. We can just once again do the quick scripting here. This time, I guess I can make the camera a child of the character, just so we don't have that issue in the future. So yeah, there we go. Camera. Let's go ahead and Let's find the scripts, level script, camera, lock that in. Let's go to third person here. Put in our man character, and in the man character, we need to make sure that we assign this camera to them. And now it should work. I believe it should work. Let's see. Yes, there we go. Hooray! This works. All right. Well, this has been a brief introduction to character animation, specifically importing other characters from other locations. In this case, finding ready characters from the Unity Asset Store and applying character controller scripting and animation trees to them. In the next video, we're going to go through almost the same process, but we are going to be bringing in a character from a different program, from Maya, into Unity and doing almost the exact same thing. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you got something out of this. Bye-bye.